Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello there, my name is Salim Javed and I'm an assistant professor at the Faculty of Mass Communication and Media Technology at SGT University. As this is our 17th video in the row. In this video, we are going to explore the world of print media. The word print connotes written by machine and the term media illustrates mode of communication. So, print media has been imparting knowledge and information to a strictly targeted huge mass. Media can be broadly divided into three types: print media, broadcast media, and internet based media, which is called new media also. Now, print media has been the first form of mass communication since the invention of typography by Gutenberg in 1447 until the mass production of film and radio between 1900 and 1920s. Then television came, and then internet also has claimed their own share of the media audience. The printing press or the printing media began from Tai Shai Lun of Han Dynasty, a Chinese official assigned with the invention of paper in 105 AD. 40 years later, Pi Shang, also called Bi Shang of the Shan Dynasty, would invent the first movable type. It would call for literally hundreds of years later in 1276 for printing to reach Europe in the shape of a paper mill in Italy, and another 200 years until Johannes Gutenberg in 1447 refined a method to efficiently print books and brochures in the Gutenberg press. Prior to the advent of printing press and the invention of paper, books were made of vellum because of its durability. The books that showed up first in print shops were Bible and other religious books. The most vital and significant purpose of print media is to share information as a written interface to a strictly targeted audience for whom the particular set of information or data has been meant. It connotes that there would never be any wastage of vital information, and the primarily concerned audience would get the maximum benefit from the written data. It serves the commercial motive of advertising any product on one hand and revealing the credibility of the business on the other hand. Print media is a revolutionary evolution that has buried the gap of communication with the aid of tangible printed assets such as newspaper, magazines, letters, etc. among various targeted groups of people, so that the hierarchy of information would never get broken down due to slacking conversation. Print media has several sources to destine its significant role, among which newspapers, magazines are the gigantic dominants for intermediating information till date, while business letters, brochures, billboards, pamphlets, signboards, postcards and advertisements play secondary role in catapulting a large audience in one go. As I just said, that print media has several sources to destine its significant role, among which newspaper and magazine are the gigantic dominants for intermediating information. So let's explore each of them separately. Now, first, let's pick up magazine. Now, what is a magazine? Or what do we call a magazine? Well, magazines are printed and bound publications offering in-depth coverage of stories, often of a timeless nature. Their content may provide opinion and interpretation as well as advocacy. They are geared to a well-defined specialized audience, and they are published regularly with a consistent format. Now, first publication which could be called a magazine was Evaulische Mans und Teradumen, released in the year 1663. It was a literary and philosophical edition, and after it several periodicals with very similar topics were published and were intended for an intellectual audience. A publication similar to today's magazine, various themes and several authors appeared in the year 1672 when French author Jean Deneau Davez created Le Macule Galant. It combines topics from court events, theatre, and literature, and this magazine's concept was copied throughout Europe. The first women magazine, Ladies' Mercury, was launched in London in the year 1693. Of course, these publications in their beginning were called periodicals. The name magazine appeared in year 1731 with the occurrence of Gentleman's Magazine. The name magazine, which comes from an Arabic word which means the warehouse. In Indian context, as far as the name magazine is concerned, if you remember in video 15 in which we explored the history of print media in India, we came across the Oriental Magazine or Calcutta Amusement. Oriental Magazine, the Oriental Magazine or Calcutta Amusement, which was published in the year 1785 from Calcutta, published monthly from 6th April 1785, and its proprietors were Gordon and John Hay. The first printed magazine in Malayalam was Najana Nishpam in the year 1848. And Archdeacon Cochet and Rev. George Methan were behind this 8-page magazine, which served the cause of propagation of religious and dissemination of knowledge. Vidya Sangraham, which came out in 1864, had the credit of the first college magazine in Kerala. In the early 20th century appears one of the most important icons in the world of publishing, William Randolph Hearst. We talked about him in context of yellow journalism, if you remember in last video, as the owner of several newspapers across America. He engaged in a merciless battle for readers with his mentor Joseph Pulitzer. Hearst expanded his empire of magazine publishing, starting with the famous Good Housekeeping, National Geographic, and Harper's Bazaar. Beside Hearst magazine, some other important publication also appeared, and the name of those publication is like Condé Nast Vogue, Vanity Fair, and news magazine Time, whose starter Henry Luce is still considered as the most influential publisher in the history. Parallel with the development of Time, Fortune magazine was also published, which originated from Time business pages. Fortune was considered the best and most influential American magazine. Besides heavily influenced by the world of business, Fortune is known for being the first high-quality printed magazine with pages in full color. Elle was another important popular magazine launched in 1945 by Helen Lazareff. In the history of the publishing, no editor had such a lasting impact on its magazine as it was Helene. In Germany in 1959, legendary magazine Twen was released. Twen was a provocative magazine for a young audience, and it consisted of erotic photos and intelligent articles. In the 70s emerged a new kind of magazine, Celebrity Magazine. The first issue of The People was out in 1974. Since then, this kind of magazine has been the most selling one. So, from a magazine, what does a reader expect from a magazine? A reader expects articles that are longer with much more in-depth analysis of issue and trend. I can tell you how the impact of a magazine works. It's scholarly writing which makes the difference. I tell you a line which I still remember, which I read somewhere in 2010 or 2011. I don't remember the full article, but the opening line of that article in one of the issues of Frontline magazine is still clinging in my mind, and the line was, "One day the sand of Wahhabism will barren the fertile land of India." I initially did not understand the line because it requires certain kind of background information and an acquaintance with the total issue. But when I understood it after some time, the line stays with me even today. That's the power of beautiful and meaningful writing. Some may call it opinion or interpretation as well as advocacy, but it's with me. It's like a falsafa or philosophy. It was just one line, but so many things. Read some good magazines if you can. Unlike magazines, newspaper is a daily affair, though there are some weekly newspapers as well. Newspaper means any printed periodical work containing public news or comments on public news, and includes such other class of printed periodical works as may from time to time be notified in this behalf by the central government in the official gazette. Newspaper can be broadly divided as daily, as I said, weekly newspaper also, so daily and weekly newspaper, local newspaper, national newspaper, international newspaper, online newspapers, and customized newspaper as well. The first advantage that comes to mind when speaking about newspapers is how they are part of our daily life and global society as a whole also. The second advantage is its mobility. Well, you can say, Salim sir, this is one of the major strengths of new media and not the print media. Well, you are absolutely right, but with more than 630 million subscribers, India is a home to the world's second largest internet user base. But connectivity is still an issue, especially since mobile data rather than the fixed line internet is the main source. In print media, there is a battalion who are tirelessly forging the newspaper day after day. Who are they? What do they do? Let's explore that. So everyone knows that there are journalists. So if there are journalists, then there must be non-journalists also. The journalists are further divided into wage board journalists and contracted journalists. These wage board journalists are further divided into field workers and desk workers. So whatever we read in a newspaper is decided by the editorial department of a newspaper. So they are the one who represents the paper. They are the face of a newspaper. Long before the paper is published, the editor assigned reporters to cover the news, check for accuracy and fairness in the newspaper's article, and writes headlines also. It is not unusual for a newspaper editor to have worked as a journalist or proofreader before becoming an editor. The editor of the newspaper alone cannot handle the work and is therefore assisted by a number of people for the timely delivery of the newspaper. Editor or chief editor is the topmost position in editorial department. If the size of the media house is big, then we can have associate editors and senior assistant editors as well. Assistant editors or news editors are next in the hierarchy. Under assistant editors or news editors, we have chief sub editors. Under chief sub editor, we have senior sub editor, and under senior sub editor, we have sub editors. We will see the responsibility of a sub editor because this is how everyone starts. Bigger organizations can have editors for every section. The responsibility of a sports editor is to look after all the stories related to sport. Similarly, the feature editor is responsible for looking after the feature stories. Business editor is responsible for commerce pages in the newspaper. Photo editor is in charge of photos and the photographers. There is a graphic section in every newspaper which is headed by the graphic editor. It is also referred to as the art department sometimes. The graphic editor has the responsibility to look after the production and publication of all the graphics such as cartoons, charts, bar diagrams, illustration, infographics, etc. There are graphic artists or graphic reporters also who work under this department and are responsible for research and designing various graphics as mentioned before, which supports our news story. We have resident editors and group editors as well. So if the publishing company is publishing from Delhi and has its headquarters in Delhi, but the paper is also published from Patna and Bhopal. So if a story is produced in Delhi and also carried in Patna and Bhopal edition, so the editor of the story remains the same throughout India. In this particular situation, for Patna edition and Bhopal edition, it will have different resident editors along with the same editor. As far as the group editor is concerned, if the media house has more than one publication and the editor of all of them is the same, so he or she will get the title of a group editor. Managing editor is the person who is in charge of day-to-day production. The editorial page of any newspaper accommodates the editorial article, the letter to editor, and columns by senior and renowned journalists, and also guest columns by the locals. Whereas the publisher of a newspaper looks after all the matters pertaining to the operations that include the financial and the editorial operations as well. And to meet the financial challenges and to survive in this competition is the main responsibility of a newspaper publisher. The next important department in a newspaper is the copy editing desk, headed by the chief copy editor. The copy desk receives news stories coming through various sources like news bureaus, local correspondents, and other sources. The main job at this desk is to edit the news copies, rewrite if required, and make sure that they are written according to the organization's standard. The chief copy editor finalizes every news story and also appoints skilled professionals for the desk. Copy editors report to the chief copy editor. As I promised that I'll be talking about the roles and responsibilities of sub-editors. Probably this is the first baby step in the hierarchy to reach up to the level of editor or chief editor. It depends on the organization whether editor is the head or chief editor. But before I start explaining it further, I want to correct a point here. I have seen misinformation at many times and have noticed in some books which are about a copy editor and a sub editor, the role of copy editor and a sub editor. I have witnessed debates whether copy editor is superior to sub editor and vice versa. The Working Journalist and Other Newspaper Employees Condition of Service and Miscellaneous Provision Act 1955 does not have any job title by the name of copy editor. What it has, let me tell you that. So this is quote unquote. Working journalist means a person whose principal avocation is that of a journalist and who is employed as such either whole time or part time in or in relation to one or more newspaper establishments and includes an editor, leader, writer, news editor, sub editor, feature writer, copy tester, reporter, correspondents, cartoonists, news photographers, and proofreaders, but does not include, and so on. What it mentions is sub editor and not copy editor. Copy editor is a term which is borrowed from advertising world and does not belong to the newspaper vocabulary or terminology. Even if it is used in newspaper industry, the word is used in contract system. I have explained both the terms as per what is being taught, but there is obvious difference when it comes to copy editor and sub editor. There is no denying of the fact that editing is one of the most challenging jobs in the process of journalism. A good command over language, extraordinary creative skill, nose for news, ability to improve a news copy, and to be objective while reporting facts are the prerequisite for a news editor. Therefore, the sub-editor improves the quality of a news report and makes it ready for publishing. The role of a sub-editor may vary from organization to organization. Majority of the reporters of local newspaper come under the city editor. They are generally divided into two parts, a beat reporter and a journal assignment reporter. Now, a beat reporter or the journalist covers his or her beat only. The subject is generally of interest to the reporter. Various beats like legal, specifically parliamentary reporting, political reporting, entertainment reporting, sports reporting. So there can be many beats also. Now, let's talk about different departments which are involved in bringing out the newspaper on a daily basis. So let's talk about them. So first in the list is advertisement department. So in newspaper industry, advertisement department is very important because it gets in revenue necessary to run the business, and newspaper ads have stood the test of time. So newspaper is one of the best platforms for the advertisers. Doesn't matter big or small. So there is a space for every kind of advertisement. So basically it can be a big ad, it can be a small ad, so from full page to some centimeters also. The fee that is charged for different spaces is what constitutes the income from the advertisement publication. Getting in revenue through advertising for the newspaper happens through various means. So newspaper uses different kind of ads like classified ads, display ads, insert advertisements, business card ads, sales ads. Sometimes you get to see coupons also in newspaper, spotlight ads, frills or flyers, we call them, folding, informational ads, and like these are some of the categories to attract the advertiser. The advertising department will accept and process order from advertisers to book space in the newspaper, as well as create ads and give agencies statistics and information about the circulation and readership of the newspaper. As well as works with the editorial team to create more space. More space means more advertisements, which will result in more revenue generation also. So let's talk about circulation department. Once the newspaper is printed, circulation department takes here on, delivering the publication to homes, to third-party vendors, mailing it to vending machines or newsstands and other places it circulates. A newspaper's circulation is the number of copies it distributes on an average day. To calculate total readership, they simply multiply the average net circulation, average gross distribution less return, by their readers per copy. It is assumed that everyone or anyone picking up a copy of the publication reads or looks at it. It keeps a record of city circulation and area circulation and of sales promotion. Though promotion is essentially the work of public relation department of the newspaper, every newspaper has a PR department also. Now let's talk about next department, which is basically printing department. It looks after the work of printing, including installations of machines, plant layout, composing, processing, loading, scheduling, maintenance of machines, and many more things. Newspaper are printed on newsprint. It is basically a cheap and disposable type of paper, and through offset printing it is done. Now next department in the list is accounting department. Quite evidently, the department looks after the accounting work, like maintaining the books of accounts, preparing balance sheets and other financial statements, payment receipts, preparation of the budget, financial planning, cost control, so things like these. You also have stores department or store department. It is basically charged with the responsibility of proper storage of raw material, because a lot of raw material is used, which is basically newsprint and other material used in the newspaper office. Now next department in the list is administrative department. Now this department is responsible for the general administration of the entire establishment. The department is in charge of the certain very important duties, such as planning, organizing and staffing. Thus the department basically looks after the general administrative work pertaining to personnel, their selection, training, promotion, allotment of work, maintaining leave record, liaison with the government department, general facilities and all such work that facilitates working of other departments. In the absence of separate legal department, the administrative department also handles the work pertaining to legal matters. Otherwise, there is a separate department for the legal aspects. So today we have explored the world of print media and tried to understand newspaper and magazine, and about what are they and how do they function, how do they get produced, and about their different departments. In the next video, we will talk about electronic media. I hope that the information provided in this video will come handy whenever you need it. And this video must have solved many of your doubts related to the topic. I look forward seeing you in the next video. Till then, take care and stay safe.